What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to this episode of OTA Clips. I'm Griffin, Senyek, joined by my co-host of Outside the Arena, Mac Rommel. And today we've got some breaking news that broke last night involving Lions, or I guess former Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford. That's right. Matthew Stafford has been traded to the Los Angeles Rams for a major package, including Jared Goff, a third-round pick this year, and two future first-round picks all going to Detroit. So Detroit gets a big haul, but the Rams in a win now window right now get a superstar quarterback on like Matthew Stafford. So Mac, I'll start with you here. What are your thoughts on this trade? What do you like? What do you don't like? What were you thinking here?
This was a huge trade, as everyone knows. Matt Stafford, now a Ram, and I'm looking at it initially. I didn't even notice that Jared Goff was part of the trade. I'm like, wow, the Lions absolutely robbed them. Then I saw Jared Goff, and I'm like, okay, they're probably getting that extra one because they're taking on Jared Goff's contract, which is huge, and that's 2 years, a bunch of guaranteed money. So I think this is good for both teams. The Lions, of course, are getting two future first-round picks, so you're gonna be able to build the team around a player like Jared Goff. And after these 2 years of all the guaranteed money, maybe you're going to look on and see if you could find a future quarterback if it doesn't work out with Jared Goff. But for the Rams, I think that this is a big trade for them. You're looking at making them kind of immediate Super Bowl contenders within the next 2 to 3 years. They could potentially get back to the Super Bowl with this huge new quarterback. And Matt Stafford, of course, he's injury prone, so you're going to have to look and be aware of that one big injury. And who are you going to really have behind him? John Wolford, is he going to be able to carry this team? I don't think so. So that's the main thing I'm looking at for the Lions. But for the Rams, excuse me, and the Lions, they're in rebuild mode, so this doesn't really affect them much. I think they win the trade for now because you're getting a quarterback. Maybe he'll be the quarterback of the future. If not, in 2 years, you'll be able to get a new quarterback and add a bunch of pieces around with your two first-round picks.
It was a big trade. I mean, looking at the haul they got, it was really impressive that they got that much for
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford. I mean, obviously, Jared Goff was going to get thrown in because they didn't want to keep him. But two firsts, I was surprised at
Yep.
that. I mean, that's a lot for a guy who, age 32. I think it shows how the league values Matthew Stafford. I think that's one of the things that is not being discussed enough here is that, people really, it seems, value Matthew Stafford, and he's like basically on, a superstar quarterback in the eyes of the general managers and the executives in the NFL. And, he hasn't had talent for much of his career, obviously Calvin Johnson, and he's put up great stats, but it's really interesting to see. I thought it was a lot to give up, but they're trying to win now. And Matthew Stafford's definitely a guy who, hasn't really won much. So he's motivated. He wants to win. He's going to be coming in. They've got a lot of star talent on that team now. So we'll see what happens there. But on the flip side for the Lions, I really love this trade for them. I think, they were going to have to trade Matthew Stafford. That was clear. And they get, Jared Goff, who, you have for a few years, you can plug him in for now. If you draft a quarterback like a Justin Fields at I believe they're picking at 7 or 8, wherever they're picking, you get Justin Fields. He can learn for a year or two from Jared Goff. Say what you want, but Jared Goff has, experience. He's been to the Super Bowl. They won a playoff game this year with Jared Goff. So he has experience playing. So he can definitely be a mentor towards a young quarterback. And he's also not terrible. He's not probably a franchise kind of guy, but he's still a solid, quarterback that you can start in a rebuild. So I like that for them. And then also they get a third this year. I mean, third round picks are very, those are coveted too. That's not just some throw in sixth rounder. And then they get two first, which is, I saw something that was so accurate. I mean, imagine what the trade for Deshaun Watson is going to look like now.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that later in this, but I mean, wow, it's crazy to think that Matt Stafford, who, had a good year. He threw for 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 10 picks, but to think that he got that much in return for Detroit, I'm sure Detroit is ecstatic with the haul they got right now. But at the same time, I think the Rams are making a move that they're saying, we need to win now. This is a guy who we think can get it done. And, they probably have a 1 to 2 year window left in that win now frame before, payroll stuff gets out of hand and some of those big names start leaving. So we'll see what happens. But the Rams, really good move for them. I mean, it's good for both sides, but I mean, the fact that the Rams aren't going to have made a first round pick for 7 years is wild. That's crazy to me.
Sorry, you cut out there for a minute, so I lost the ending.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying how it's crazy to me how the Rams won't have made a first round pick for seven consecutive years. It's crazy.
Yep, it's insane. speaking of that, I mean, they came out and said that they'd rather take talent, immediate talent or for sure and guaranteed talent than risking on a first round player. They'd rather take the stars like the Jalen Ramseys and well now the Matthew Staffords to try and win now. But when you're thinking of this right now, in the future, how will this pay out? You're getting all these superstars and great players who you're going to have to spend money on. And what people love about having these first round picks is you could take a chance in getting a superstar player for cheap, for only a few $1,000,000 for 4 or 5 years. So the Rams in the next few years, how is their cap situation going to look? You saw with Jared Goff, that kind of screwed everything up. So now you're going to be looking at Matt Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, and all these big star players with all their money that they're going to be getting paid within the next few years. So their cap situation, that could be something to look forward for the Rams in the future.
Yeah, I think I saw something that was like the Rams had like the two biggest cap hits in the past like 3 years of all time, with like Brandon Cooks and Jared Goff are both over like 20 million in dead cap. So I mean they're paying a lot of money to just get rid of these guys and improve their team, which is really impressive to see. And it's interesting. We'll see what happens. Um, it's a bold move. So I guess that the next question would be, where do the Rams? Obviously, it's very hard to say. The season's not even over yet.
Yep.
Super Bowl Sunday is a week from today. So, but looking early on, I mean, assuming things remain similar, which they obviously won't due to the crazy quarterback situation going on right now. But where do you think the Rams stack up in the NFC? Where do you think, how do you think they look? Can they be a Super Bowl contender? Where do you have them right now?
I think they're a Super Bowl contender, but I'm not sure if they're better than some of these other teams. Of course, Buccaneers, I haven't been high on this entire season, but if Tom Brady and Gronk stays for next year, this is going to be a team that's probably going to still stay ahead of the Rams. The Packers, they're probably going to make the NFC Championship again and lose like they've done the past 2 years. The Saints, they're normally a better team, but once you get to the playoffs, it seems like the Rams seem to be better than them. So there are a lot of these teams that seem to be better throughout the season, even when you get to the playoffs. So the Rams are going to have to compete, and I think they're probably third or fourth in the NFC right now with this trade. But I guess the main problem and main thing about this Matt Stafford trade is only 3 playoff games and no wins. He doesn't have the experience of leading a team in the playoffs and to even making a run yet. So that's going to be something to look forward to next year if the Rams do make the playoffs.
Yeah, I like that point right there that he really, looking at the stats, he's only had 4 winning seasons ever. And obviously, a lot
Yeah.
of that has to do with the situation he was in Detroit. So you don't put the blame solely on him. He's played great, but yeah, he doesn't have that winning experience that some other quarterbacks do. Um, yeah, and in terms of where they stand on the NFC, for me, I agree with you. I think there's, teams like the Bucks if Brady comes back, which it sounds like he will. Teams like the Packers, assuming they remain have a similar roster. Um, they could be that third team right now. Honestly, looking in the NFC West, I don't think the Niners are better. I mean, the Niners were going for Stafford, but they didn't get him.
Once you
So,
get Deshaun,
uh,
that's something to look forward to.
yeah, I mean, the Niners, you've heard rumblings that, they're not going to have Jimmy G will not be the quarterback next year, which, I mean, they're really quickly moving on from him. I mean, he really was hurt most of the year
Yep.
and led them to the Super Bowl the year before. But I mean, we're seeing that with Jared Goff now. So clearly teams are not afraid to move on from quarterbacks when, they potentially were led by their defenses. But I would say this team is better than Seattle right now.
Mhm.
We saw in the playoffs they beat Seattle. I think with Matt Stafford now, they have that elite quarterback. Their offense is going to be a lot better just because, some of the throws, arm strength, stuff like that, that Matt Stafford can do that Jared Goff couldn't. And in terms of Seattle, I'm just still worried about that defense. I think that defense is a mess. They're not good on the line on both sides of the football. That's a huge issue for them. Their O line and D line really aren't strengths, which is not good. So we'll see what happens. But right now, and then you got Arizona, I guess. But Arizona is just kind of an average team. They're gonna have to do a decent bit to get on the level of some of these other teams, I think. So I'm gonna give the Rams probably the best team in the NFC West. Obviously, it's very early to say. And the Rams, honestly, like I don't know what else they'll do this offseason because their cap is going to be screwed. But
Yep.
I might have them as the third team just because, you talk about the Saints, but the Saints, it looks like they're going to lose a lot of guys this year. Drew Brees,
Yep, I
Trey
forgot about that.
Hendrickson, I believe, is a free agent. They
Yep.
and their cap is like negative 100 million. So
Yeah.
I can see, I
About
think
that.
that team is going to be completely restructured this offseason. So Rams probably third best team in the NFC right now. That's what I would say.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And then you're looking at the Lions. I'm not sure where you would have them. Or I guess my question I would ask you is, how long do you think this rebuild would be until they're maybe even back to a playoff team or something like that?
I think it's hard to say because, they're kind of, you heard new head coach Dan Campbell say, we're not afraid to, have a slow rebuild here. That's kind of what we're in. And I think it's true. You look at the wide receivers, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, none of them are under contract this
Mhm.
season. They're all going to be free agents. Marvin Jones is gone. Danny Amendola, I assume, is gone. Kenny Galladay, maybe they'll bring back, but I doubt he's really going to want to be there. I think they're just in a slow rebuild right now. And, they got to move away because that defense is built off all ex-Patriots, and they got to move away from that. And I think that was, Matt Patricia was there, obviously. That was the reason, but they just need to form their own identity. And I think they will under Dan Campbell. Obviously, they drafted a guy like Jeff Okudah last year. They have DeAndre Swift, who's a building block on that offense. They've got some good O linemen. They've got Frank Ragnow, the center, Taylor Decker at left tackle. So they have some pieces. But in terms of how far they are away, they're probably a few years, 2-3 years away from contending. I would say, just because you know Goff will be able to keep them in the loop for now. But I do think they need to find another franchise quarterback. So that's this year, and they think a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson or even like a Trey Lance or something like that could be their franchise quarterback. I mean, who knows what they'll do? But maybe they'll take a quarterback this year, or maybe they'll draft. Maybe they'll go on the D line, the O line. Maybe they'll go for a tackle, someone like Rashawn Slater or something like that. Who knows? We'll see what happens there. But Detroit, I think they're a few years away, so we'll see what their approach to it is this offseason. But obviously, stacking up the draft is going to be essential for them. They're going to have a lot of picks in the future, so that's great for them.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I think it'll probably be 3 to 4 years for me. And as you said it perfectly. All those expatriate players, it's just not going to cut, especially new scheme with Dan Campbell in there. He was with the Saints, completely different types of schemes that Matt Patricia and Dan Campbell were coming from. So it's going to be completely different. This team is going to have to change completely. And as you said, Jeff Okudah, DeAndre Swift, I think those are going to be the two key guys that you're going to have to build around. Jeff Okudah last year. It didn't seem like he worked out with Matt Patricia. He was the third overall pick for a reason. He has to come back, and I think Dan Campbell, of course, he was over there with the Saints with that great defensive back group. So hopefully, he can turn Jeff Okudah around. So I think those are going to be the two pieces of your offense and defense that you're going to have to build around. So, and as you said, all the wide receivers are all free agents, but now you're taking on all that Jared Goff guaranteed money for the next 2 years. Will you be able to pay even Kenny Galladay, your star receiver? I'm not sure about that. So in the draft, maybe you're gonna have to look for like a Jalen Waddle you could build around and help Jared Goff with. And as you
And
said,
that might be where they go,
yep.
honestly.
And then you said with Jared Goff, maybe even a quarterback. But now with these 2 years of dead money with Jared Goff, do they really look for a quarterback this year, or would they rather start building around him and see what he could do before going out and finding their quarterback of the future? So we're gonna have to see where the Lions go there, but you definitely have to center your offensive defense around those two key rookies from last year. And yeah, I think they're about 3 to 4 years away from contending.
Yeah, I agree with that point. We'll see where they go in the draft. I mean, teams are known to do weird things with
Yep.
quarterbacks, so you never know. And maybe they'll play. Sometimes you just gotta let the draft play out. Maybe someone falls in the second round to them, maybe even like a Mac Jones or something like
Mhm.
that they really like, and then they pounce on him then. But we'll see what happens with Detroit. Um, but yeah, I think both these teams, they made the right moves for the direction they're heading in, and it'll be interesting to see what it holds for them. Now, to end this, though, we talked about it a little earlier, the Deshaun Watson situation. I just want to bring it up briefly just because I think it's an interesting
Mhm.
thing to talk about. Obviously, this trade brought back a huge haul. So, I mean, looking at, some of the potential teams that are interested, what do you think it's going to take to get a deal done for Deshaun Watson? And, who do you think has potentially the best package to offer for a trade for Deshaun?
Yeah, this Deshaun Watson trade, it's going to be a haul. I mean, as you said, you see what the Lions got for Matt Stafford, and this is going to be significantly more. Deshaun Watson is probably a top 3, top 4 quarterback in this league, and he's young. He's about to enter his prime. He hasn't even hit his ceiling yet, so a lot of room for improvement. So, I mean, you could be looking at 1 to 2 decent players, or I mean, you're definitely looking at 3 first-round draft picks at least for Deshaun Watson. I'd say you're looking at maybe teams like the Panthers who came out and said they want to be aggressive for Deshaun Watson, but the team, their GM, David Culley, yep, he says they're not going to trade him. So this is going to be hard, and I think you're going to have to pay. You may even have to pay more than 3 first-round draft picks for Deshaun Watson with to even get the eyes of Dan Coley to turn. So this can be hard. 3 first-rounders, maybe a third, and some things like that. It's gonna be a big payday for the Texans, who don't have many draft picks and have been drafting too well the past few years. So I'm looking at definitely the Panthers. They're going to be aggressive. 49ers, Colts, and then even the Jets in there, who I'm looking forward to trading for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think you put it pretty well there. The Texans, honestly, they just need to accept that it's time to rebuild. They're not going to be able to contend with this team. They have too much dead money all over the place with Laramie Tunsil. That's a huge contract. Brandon Cooks is on there. That's a big contract. JJ Watt, which I think they're going to end up trading. So they got to just move on. If they can trade JJ Watt and Deshaun Watson this offseason, I mean, you're going to be able to get so much in return for your future and set yourself up to be in such a good position. And that's just the route you're going to have to take. It's unfortunate because I think this all stems from the culture set by Bill O'Brien and that DeAndre Hopkins trade. I think from there, it's just been downhill, and it's just at a place where you can't recover. And this new regime, you just got to completely reset. They obviously have the new GM. I forget his name, and then new head coach, David Coley. You just got to reset everything. And I don't think Deshaun, I don't think this is a repairable relationship. I don't know if he's going to be playing for you come season time if he's still on the team. I don't think he's going to go out and risk an injury for a team that he just doesn't care for anymore. It hurts for them to see, but I think they just got to move on, and they're going to be able to get a haul from them. They know that. So move on from guys like JJ Watt, Deshaun Watson, and set yourself up for the future. That's the move. And I think the team that honestly is in the best position to trade for him is the New York Jets. I think just because they hold the number 2 pick, that's so valuable. If the Texans can get that, they can have a chance to reset completely. And the Jets also have tons of first. Right away. And the Jets also have a lot of picks. They have 2 first-round picks in the next 2 years because the Jamal Adams trade. So they have flexibility to give 3 first-round picks. If they give, 1 this year and both next year, something like that, they have the flexibility for that. They also have a quarterback they can give you in Sam Darnold, who, he is still young. There's still time to develop him. If it's not going to be someone you might say is a franchise quarterback, but if you just want someone to test out, you can get Sam Darnold. Other pieces you could acquire, I'm not really sure. The Jets are really thin on pieces that, actual, like you said, like decent players to give. I don't know how many of those they have, but, the New York Jets are going to be able to give you draft pick compensation. They'll give you a young quarterback in Sam Darnold and, see what happens. But it'll be interesting to see if they go for the route of more, youth and draft picks, or if they want like players to win now and then also draft picks. We'll see what happens. But I do think that number 2 pick is going to be the key for the Jets, just because, it's not some like 16 or 17 pick where you're picking from and you don't necessarily know what kind of level of talent you're going to get. Number 2, you're getting a superstar. So I think that puts the Jets in a good spot with the Deshaun Watson trade.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to Sam Darnold, I mean, if you're looking at the Texans, you said 3 first-round picks potentially. If you get Sam Darnold, not only are you getting a young player, but you're saving tons of money. A guy on his rookie deal, and that's what they need. They're going to have a huge problem with their cap. They're going to need some players that are cheap, and so they can build around those players. So I think Sam Darnold could be a key guy there, and he was a 3rd overall pick for a reason. I mean, he still has to have something in him, and hopefully David Coley can pull something out of him if that trade does go through.
We're talking about 2 3rd overall picks today. Sam Darnold, Jeff Okudah just quite haven't lived up to the expectations. Maybe that spot's just cursed. Who knows?
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's kind of all we got for this one. So if you want to wrap it up, I think we covered everything good. Unless you have something else you want to talk about.
All right, I think we can wrap this one up. So, everyone, we appreciate you guys watching this episode of OTA Clips on breaking news of Matthew Stafford and a little bit of Deshaun Watson talk. We appreciate everything you guys do. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to our main podcast YouTube channel. We are on Apple and Spotify as well. It's Outside the Arena. Make sure to follow us on our social media. Our Instagrams are mac.rommel. Griffin's Instagram is
Griffin Senyek.
Our podcast Instagram is Outside the Arena. Make sure you go follow us there, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.